One Green Thing. Oh, thank you. Heather White is the founder of One Green Thing and author of Co-Anxiety, Saving Our Sanity, Our Kids, and Our Future, 60 Days to a Greener Life, and One Green Thing. I have all of them right here. She directed environmental education advocacy at the nation's largest conservation organization. She served as an executive director to an environmental health watchdog in Washington, D.C., and she led the nonprofit partner to Yellowstone National Park. She worked on Capitol Hill as a legislative counsel to Senator Russ Feingold of Wisconsin and a presidential campaign staffer to Vice President Al Gore. Heather graduated with a JD from the University of Tennessee College of Law and earned a bachelor's degree in environmental science from the University of Virginia. Thank you, Heather, for being with us today. Dr. Leslie Carr is a clinical psychologist with a passion for educating the general public and about the effect. Actually, you know what? I think I'm going to introduce you all as you answer questions, if that's okay. So,
Sure.
Heather, please tell us, what is eco-anxiety? Why are we all here? And please tell us about your new book.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Alicia, for you hosting this series. Also, MSU, University of Montana, Families for a Livable Climate, Park County Environmental Council. I especially want to thank Leslie Carr and Chris Hill, who are board members of One Green Thing, the nonprofit I lead, and Helena, who's an intern in Georgia, who's been working with us for years. So thank you so much for being part of this conversation. So eco-anxiety is actually defined by the American Psychological Association as the chronic fear of environmental doom. It's not, as Leslie can talk about this more as a psychologist, it's not in the DSM, it's not a actual like disorder, but more and more people are experiencing extreme anxiety connected to climate. And actually, one of the things that I would kind of say in a more colloquial way is that eco-anxiety refers to an uncertainty about the future. Just more and more people are experiencing these extreme weather events driven by climate change, including Maya, who just joined us from Wellington. Maya, thank you for being here. We're going to turn it over to you and would love to hear what's happening in Wellington right now. But more and more people, whether it's Hurricane Helene that we've seen in Asheville, the fires that Leslie can talk about. Leslie's based in LA, that we just experienced in January, whether it's extreme flooding in the country of India, drought in the continent of Africa. I mean, just more and more people are experiencing these extreme weather events. Other terms for eco-anxiety include climate anxiety, solastalgia, climate grief, eco-distress. More and more people are talking about climate emotions because it's not just anxiety that people feel, but just a couple quick stats about eco-anxiety. There was a survey last September of 16,000 young Americans ages 16 through 25. 85% said that eco-anxiety interfered with their daily life. Every single state, in every single state, the majority of kids were experiencing, I say kids, they were ages 16 through 25, but at 52, I can call them kids. But they were experiencing, the majority in every state was experiencing eco-anxiety. And this is the statistics that I think is a call to action. 1 out of 2 do not want children of their own because of climate. This isn't a lifestyle choice. This isn't because they don't want to just be a parent. They're so worried about the future that they're inheriting from us. And I think that's a call to action for all of us to be part of this movement. So I've written 3 books. They're all about the intersection between climate and mental health. I've been doing this work, as Alicia so kindly introduced me, for 25 years. I've been doing environmental advocacy, but it was actually a conversation with my teenagers that brought me to this point of realizing that we needed to create space and name it. As Leslie would always say, as a psychologist, we need to name it, to name eco-anxiety and how young people are feeling, and then also create an invitation for more people to see themselves involved in conservation and environmental protection and climate action.
Maya, I can catch you up on where we are at. So first of all, Maya, like, how are you? Are you safe? What's going on, girl?
Yes, I am all good. I apologize everyone for my delay, and thank you so much for being flexible and getting started without me. This again is going to be a wonderful talk. But yes, I am in Wellington, and they just issued a red warning for a windstorm moving through, and so our entire campus had to evacuate. So yes, as it connects to climate, I'm experiencing it right now. So that just
Yeah.
adds a little extra drama to this event.
Well, Maya, we are so happy to have you here. We are so proud of your activism and your dedication and your service and like your just willingness to boost youth everywhere around the world in climate action. I'll let you know where we are in the run of show, Maya, if you want to jump right in. I just introduced Heather and asked her what is eco anxiety? And she did a wonderful job explaining it for us. And so if you want to jump in from here, explain yourself and what's going on, and we can move right along.
Absolutely. So was that just the individual question directed to Heather? Perfect.
Yes,
Okay.
Maya.
Well,
And
hi
what we
everyone.
decided to do is we'd have you introduce people as you're asking them questions.
Perfect. Okay, amazing. Hi everyone, I'm Maya. I'm currently a junior at the University of Montana and a little bit late, but happy to be your moderator for this evening. So our next question is directed to Dr. Leslie Carr. Now, Dr. Leslie Carr is a clinical psychologist with a passion for educating the general public about the effect that our environment has on our mental health. She's the host of a podcast called The Nature of Nurture, which explores how our emotional lives are impacted by our relationships, our culture, and even by government influence. She believes strongly that the climate crisis is a mental health crisis. Dr. Carr serves on the One Green Thing board. And our question for you, Dr. Carr, talk to us about your work with clients. Is eco-anxiety something you're seeing in your practice, and what do you recommend that people do to manage their anxiety?
Oh, Maya, it's a really good question. And I just want to welcome you myself to the group and just take a moment to acknowledge just the wild times that we are living through on the planet right now, that we're living through an example of what we're here to talk about as we're here. And I, as Heather mentioned a moment ago, lived through the fires in Los Angeles, not, just earlier this year. So I know what it's like firsthand when you're living through a crisis and continuing to function. So you're doing great. Thank you for joining us and thank you for facilitating this. It's a really interesting question in terms of whether I see this in my private practice, because I do a little bit, but my expertise in this space extends far beyond my private practice. I do a lot of speaking and I put on workshops, and I have been on the One Green Thing board for almost 5 years now. So um, I have a lot to say about what we all can do, but it's not necessarily from my private practice per se. It's more from working alongside Heather. And also that is sort of coupled with things that I know from being a psychologist that just have to do with mental health and well-being in general. A lot of what I talk about these days is just how to survive on a challenged planet in lots of ways. It's not just the environment, but our political circumstances and everything is a lot of what I talk about. So I will sort of point everybody to maybe three top things. One is that I highly recommend the superpower assessment on the One Green Thing website, because I think one of the things that people need to know first and foremost is that we all have a role in this movement. And it's really important for people to know that they can take action in a way that is consistent with what they have to give. I think one of the things that happens these days is people might look at a protest, for example, and maybe they're not a big protester and they think to themselves, am I doing a bad job of being a citizen if I don't go to the protest? Absolutely not. You just have to find the thing that works for you. So the superpower assessment on the website is really good for helping you to kind of get in touch with your unique gifts and then to figure out how to work from that place. Because as Heather can attest, climate anxiety, the feelings that we have about climate respond really well to us actually taking direct action. So that's number one. Number two, and again, this is a broad thing that I think is really important in general. It's really important to be mindful of the news that we consume and making sure that we're not spending too much time on the internet. It's really interesting. I think we all know these days that the internet in general is not good for our mental health. But I think one of the things that gets lost in this conversation is that it's not just what we are exposed to when we're doom scrolling or we're spending too much time online. it's actually what we're not doing that ends up sort of becoming even more of the problem, because the things that bolster our mental health are spending time with the people that we care about in person, where we can actually reach out and squeeze them or get a hug. It's spending time in nature. It's spending time in a way where we can be really mindful of the actual sort of physical environment that we're in. And we are by default not really doing any of those things when we're on the internet and scrolling and going on social media and that kind of stuff. So that's a big piece of it. And that leads me up right for number 3, which I think is arguably the most important piece, which is working on our nervous system regulation as much as we can. And for those of you that are coming in cold on this, it's like this can mean there are a lot of things that we can do to take care of our nervous systems, but there's a reason why this is very trendy these days. You're probably seeing a lot of stuff online about taking care of your nervous system and stuff. And it's trendy for a really good reason, and it's because the tools work. And in a nutshell, what nervous system regulation really is about is present moment awareness, establishing a feeling of safety in your body, if that is available for you. And in a moment, I'm just going to bring us through a brief, I'll explain what I mean by that. And feeling your feelings as fully as they show up for as long as they last for, which is probably not going to be longer than like 30 seconds. So that you're actually feeling your emotions, letting them move through your body and not having them get stuck. So what I mean by establishing safety, and I promise I'll wrap up my answer to this question in a moment. I feel like I've been talking for a while, but we can all afford to check in with ourselves right now. You can't do it too often. It's helpful to do it even right now as we're on this call. Do we feel safe? You can just ask yourself, do I feel safe right now? Maya, your answer to that question might be a little bit different than for anyone else on this call, but it can be very, very useful to just say to ourselves, no matter what's going on in the news, no matter what's even going on outside of our doors or our windows, like, am I safe in this room right now? Counting fingers and toes, I'm safe. And if I can feel safe in this very moment, then on a moment-to-moment basis, we find that no matter what's going on, more often than not, we are safe. Sometimes we have to literally run for our lives. But if that's not what's happening, then we kind of count our blessings and move from there. So hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you, yes, for those insights. And I absolutely can relate to that right now. And a good reminder for me to center myself and just, yes, take notice of the fact that, yes, I am safe. I'm here with you all and thrilled to be here. So our next question is for Chris Hill, and a brief bio for Chris. She is the Chief Executive Officer for the Conservation Lands Foundation. Chris has developed a distinguished career as a public policy advocate, adeptly navigating state, regional, and federal landscapes. With over a decade of experience as an environmental lobbyist, she has demonstrated a profound commitment to advancing environmental causes. Most notably, Chris served as the first Chief Conservation Officer at the Sierra Club, where she led the organization's legacy campaigns focused on land conservation, water and wildlife, as well as outdoor access and outdoor equity. In 2019, Chris collaborated with the Outbound Collective to share her story through the film Where I Belong, shedding light on her affinity for fly fishing, her advocacy endeavors, and the importance of outdoor equity. The film also won the American Conservation Film Festival's 2021 Best Short Film. So amazing, amazing work. So Chris, as we just learned, you are an expert in public lands and sustainability. Can you tell us what role time outside might play in managing our eco-anxiety and the role that public lands play in our overall health?
Thank you so much, Maya. I'm glad you're safe, and thanks for having me on the panel. It's really great to be with you all today. We depend on nature for a lot of things. The water we drink, the air we breathe, the food we eat. Nature keeps us physically and mentally healthy. It powers our economy. It grounds us in times of crisis, and it connects us as a nation. And so when we think about the role of nature with our mental and physical well-being, Leslie sort of talked about this, but just spending 20 minutes outside a day can drastically reduce stress. And as we talk about eco-anxiety, can drastically reduce anxiety as well. that time outside can connect us to the work that we do as advocates. And we'll get into that a little bit further. And when we think about nature, Maya, we're talking about green spaces and public lands. And, public lands is a hot topic right now, but really what we're talking about is green spaces, is nature. That also could be your backyard, the patch of grass in front of your house, your neighborhood park. It could be a national park. It could be a national conservation land that's managed by the Bureau of Land Management. It could be a national monument. It could be all of these things, but at the end of the day, it is getting your feet to touch grass or sand, basically getting your feet to touch ground. And I think that that is really the most important thing as we look at connections to our body, to nature. And then from that, it's how we protect it and how we conserve it and what that looks like on an individual level, which hopefully we'll talk about later. That's going to drastically be different from person to person. So, happy to chat more about, public lands, but I think the bottom line here is really connecting with nature and green spaces and what that looks for every person can be different.
Thank you. And we will touch a little bit more on public lands coming up for the whole panel too. So we would love to continue that discussion. Now we will move on to Helena. Helena is currently working towards a degree in environmental sciences as a junior at Montana State University in Bozeman, with a concentration and special interest in water resources and freshwater ecology. She's hoping to work towards a career in hydrology or water policy. Originally from Bend, Oregon, she has spent extensive time in the outdoors, growing a love for the environment and passion for freshwater research. Helena is eager to learn more, working with One Green Thing as a current intern, and work towards educating others on what can be done to help the climate crisis. So our question for you is, research shows that 85% of young people in the US experience eco-anxiety, and 1 out of 2 don't want children of their own because of the climate crisis. And I believe Heather touched on this a little bit earlier. Have you or your friends experienced eco-anxiety, and can you talk to us about your experience a little bit?
Yes. So, thank you, Maya, for making it. I'm glad you're okay, and to the panelists for having me. Um, in my studies, I have been surrounded by lots of people who are very, very concerned about the environment and the climate crisis. And most recently this year, I've been taking a class with one of our actual advisors, Paul. He's here today. And it really kind of informed me on the amount of people that I know that do care about the environment and the climate crisis. And I've known before, one of my good friends, Natalie, actually is very concerned. She's one of the most concerned people I know other than myself. And being around her and other kids in my classes, I've really kind of gotten a grasp on how many people are concerned about the climate. And also living in Montana, a lot of kids care about public lands and being outside, and their activities are all outside. And a lot of that climate crisis has affected that kind of sports for us. And a lot of us are seeing changes in that with skiing, fishing, any other activities that we like to do in Montana. And so being in these climate classes really taught me sort of what we can do about this eco anxiety we're feeling, especially since so many of us are feeling it. And being surrounded by other people that feel these things is empowering as well. It makes us feel like less alone with it. But I would say a lot of people I'm surrounded by feel the eco anxiety from the climate crisis. But it feels good to not be alone with it and to know that other people care about it, and that there's people out there that want to do things about it. And so I would say a lot of people feel the eco anxiety, especially in my classes, and being an environmental science major. And if they weren't, I would honestly be concerned. So it's great to see that people do care, but it is scary to see how many people do care about it.
And as a student myself as well, I can absolutely relate to that. And I know your experience. And so many students, yes, share that as well, especially within our respective majors. Our next student is Georgia McCormick. Georgia is a 17-year-old junior at Park High School in Livingston, Montana, who loves nature, animals, and spending time with her dog, Alfie, as well as reading and horseback riding. Passionate about environmental protection, Georgia has been an active member of her school's Green Initiative Club since freshman year. She has previously spoken on an Earth Day panel with Heather White and spent a summer as an intern with the Park County Environmental Council. She has also raised over $5,000 for electric school bus charging stations. She's currently planning a learning day to teach middle schoolers about different power systems and their impact on the environment. So for you, Georgia, as well, how do you handle eco-anxiety, and what resources have you found that helped you manage your worry about the future?
Thank you, Maya. I'm glad you could make it today. So I just kind of try to do as much as I can to help out with the sustainability movement. I like participate in my green initiative club and everything, and it honestly helps me ease my anxiety to know that I'm doing something to help out. Um, and lots of groups like the Green Initiative, or I did an internship with Park County Environmental Council, and I was able to do a lot of good work through them. It's where I actually raised my $5,000 for electric bus charging stations. And so it's just like doing acts that like can help like improve the environment and like help with the sustainability movement. Like that's really where I kind of deal with my eco anxiety. And then also just spending time outside. Like I'll often go on walks with my dogs and like pick up trash and stuff. And it's like simple acts like that that just kind of help me out and like make me feel like I'm doing something good. So, yeah.
Thank you, Georgia. And I also feel the same. Yes, taking action is a huge remedy for me, and I think it really helps me with my own eco-anxiety as well. So thank you for sharing that. Now back to Heather. So we've heard a lot about eco-anxiety from our amazing panelists. Can you share with us how joyful daily action can help with eco-anxiety and why you started your nonprofit?
Yes, thank you, Maya, and thank you for everyone on the panel, because I think that this is a theme of, Leslie started off by naming it, creating space, feeling all the feels, but also letting us know action, and then Chris helping us, understand that that connection to nature is so important, and then Helena, Georgia, and Maya, you showing us how young people are really leading in the charge when it comes to climate action. But I think one of the things is that the climate crisis and all of the challenges, whether it be democracy, whether it be the dismantling of the EPA, and what we're seeing with the impact to the Department of Agriculture, which has the Forest Service, our concerns about, of course, the National Park Service, BLM, and Chris has been doing tons of advocacy in this area. The news is overwhelming, right? The lived experience of Gen Z, I talk about a lot. I get a question from older audiences like my age a lot, saying, why is Gen Z so stressed out? And then I start talking about the lived experience of Gen Z and how different it is for you growing up than it was for me growing up, and older generations, whether it be the extreme weather events, whether it be the concern about all these issues, gun violence, student debt, inequity, when it comes to income. I mean, there's just a lot of huge challenges. And so what I realized talking to my kids is that they felt very alone in climate action. They knew that their friends and young people were doing a lot, but really hadn't heard what older generations are doing. So one of the things is that I try to create space for there to be intergenerational conversation like this, right? For young people really to be heard, but to also to be for them to know that we've done really big things before, whether it be the closing of the ozone hole with Montreal Protocol in 1987. We've done huge things. Like a lot of young people that I speak to don't know that the Cuyahoga River caught on fire. They don't know that Earth Day, when they think about Earth Day, was created 55 years ago. The young people are now their grandparents, that created Earth Day. So making sure we have these conversations about big changes that we've seen and that we can, I think, is important. And Leslie mentioned the service superpower assessment. I have kind of like an Enneagram or a Myers-Briggs. The question is, who are you in service? How do you show up for the people you love? The idea is that everyone is welcome and everyone is needed in this movement. And you take this 5-minute assessment, and based on your strengths and service, I then match you to this joyful daily practice, because the idea is that the intention of doing one green thing each day can not only help you ease anxiety because you're exercising agency over something so big, whether it's calling your member of Congress, which Chris does all the time. She's meeting with members of Congress all the time. She doesn't just call, she sees them face to face and like walks down the hallways and says, hey, you, I have something to say. Whether it's talking to clients, which is what Leslie does, whether it's the organizing, Georgia, Maya and Helena, that you're doing, like these daily practices are really important. And even a walk in nature, as Chris helped us understand, is really important. And it's important not because of our carbon calories, like this idea of the individual carbon footprint isn't what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is that our daily actions can create not only a sense of agency, ease our eco-anxiety, but shift the culture, because we really need a culture change in order for these big policies to work. A great example of that is the Biden infrastructure bill. We called it the Inflation Reduction Act, but it was $500 billion worth of climate solutions. But if we don't have a culture shift where that's protected and people are taking advantage of the EV car credits, of the heat pump credits, if they're not doing it, then the law can only take us so far. So we have to have both culture and we have to have the law and policy to scale these solutions. So that's what this idea of the joyful daily action is all about. And then I promise this is not, it seems like a shameless plug. I guess it is a shameless plug. I also have 60 Days to a Greener Life, which is kind of like a daily devotional. Every chapter is a day. And it's 450 words. My friends joke, this is a book they'll actually read because it's a short action-oriented 60 Days to a Greener Life is a great way to just get started. Thank you.
And what a beautiful thing as well, just to have those joyful daily actions. I cannot wait to get started on that. Okay, so to our full panel, and I'm just going to let whoever wants to take this question kind of jump in where they would like. But we have discussed how the new administration has wreaked havoc on federal energy, environmental protection, waste reduction, and planning programs, and people are understandably worried. So what's most at risk, and what advice do you have to move forward? And especially for our young people, how do you feel about your future career and professional opportunities given the circumstances?
I nominate Chris to be the first one to go.
All right. I will go first because we are just knee deep in this. So a quick sort of background on the work that I'm currently doing. So I work at the Conservation Lands Foundation, and we represent a very broad, nonpartisan national network of community leaders and advocates and organizations that are solely focused on protecting lands that are managed by the Bureau of Land Management. So those are areas like national monuments, wild and scenic rivers, national wilderness areas. They're sort of the lands in between the national parks. But the very interesting thing is the Bureau of Land Management oversees the largest amount of our country's public lands at, I want to say it's around 245 million acres across the country. And so we are really the only organization that's solely focused on working on BLM lands through what they call the national conservation areas in the system. As we move in, we're I think maybe close to 100 days now of the new administration. We are seeing some vast and grave concerns and actions that have been and are being taken by this current administration, from gutting of federal agencies, gutting of the Bureau of Land Management and all of the other agencies. We're seeing defunding a lot of the agencies, which is also incredibly concerning and challenging for conservation. And then we're also seeing attacks on public lands. You know, there's an effort to sell off our public lands, and that includes all of the lands that I talked about from the Bureau of Land Management. And we're also seeing a lot of manufactured crises. For example, you might have heard the administration talk about we're having an energy crisis. You know, we need to open up more public lands to oil and gas drilling and extraction. Well, here's the thing is that we actually are the leading producer of oil and gas drilling and have been since the first Trump administration through the Biden administration. So, you know, it's important to really fact check a lot of these thoughts that are coming out of the Trump administration. I will say, because I kind of brought everybody down now, there's vast challenges that we are facing right now, and it is super daunting and quite scary where we could be heading. But I believe in the power of the people, and at Conservation Lands Foundation, we believe in the communities, and we believe that the communities are the places that are going to create the change and create how we move forward with conservation. They are the ones, and you all in your communities are the ones that are going to stand up for the lands that are around you, whether that's BLM lands, whether that's Park Service lands, or just green spaces and state parks. You all are the ones that are there. You all are the ones that steward those lands. And so I have a lot of, there's just, you know, as I look at where we are in society, I find solace in the fact that the power really is in the people and it is less in the administration. And when we rise up, even if it's, you know, Maya, you doing one thing in where you are, and I do one thing where I am, and Heather does one thing where she is, those collective actions make a difference. And so maybe I'll stop there. Yeah, maybe I will stop there, because I just think it is our single actions that are really going to create a collective change and a collective sea of change to come. And you know, they're just gonna just wait for us to get there, because it's gonna be just an amazing feat. And lastly, I will say here's a victory. Is a couple of weeks ago, maybe now it's a couple of months ago, when there was a number of firings in the Park Service, ranger firings in the Park Service, folks got together literally from a spreadsheet, a Google spreadsheet, and put different rallies and actions. Like, I'm in Montana and here's where my rally's going to be. I'm in Idaho, here's where my rally's going to be. And we had rallies and actions across the country that brought out thousands and thousands of people. And the administration heard, and a lot, I would say maybe not a lot, but a good amount of those folks who were fired got reinstated. And the pressure on the states, the state legislatures, were huge. And that is what's creating that change. And, you know, as we think about the love for public lands, it's like just really wonderful. There was a recent poll that came out that said across the West, Western voters, across all political affiliations, 85% of all of those voters that were polled love public lands and their access to it. And so this is as nonpartisan of an issue as we can get when we look at all of the other issues that are happening as we, you know, as the administration tries to really hit our democracy. So I'll leave us with that, and maybe others can chime in.
Leslie, I'd love to hear your perspective. I mean, you have to have clients that are coming in saying, how do I handle all of the stress? I think the pain and suffering that people are hearing about, seeing, experiencing, whether it be AmeriCorps, whether it be public lands, whether it be National Institutes of Health, talk to us.
Oh, I just think more than anything, I really want to, double down on what Chris was saying about the power of the people. And I think that one of the things that's so interesting about being a person today is that it does feel like we're drinking out of a fire hose of negative news. And yet so often, you sort of get the first wave of news, which is all the bad stuff. And then if you're paying attention, and if you're not only, because, if it bleeds, it leads. So most of the news we get is bad, kind of at the top line. But if you keep paying attention, you'll see that the next wave of news is people fighting back and the good things that happen afterwards, where, to your point, Chris, the Rangers were fired and then many of them rehired. And I personally am just seeing a lot of positive signs in terms of what happens when we band together and we fight back. And I think something that is really important for me always to keep in mind, especially at a time like this, is that we don't know how the story is going to end yet. And it is a function of catastrophic thinking. It's a function of anxiety when we play it out and we think we know how it's going to end, and also that it's going to end badly. And right now we're in the fight. We are in the trenches. And I have every reason to believe that we're going to be victorious in the end. But there is a little bit of a mental battle that goes along with, I'll just sort of bring it back to nervous system regulation work. The more that we can be very present with the process, the more we see that it's, our pictures, our brain might sort of give us negative pictures, but that's not actually what's happening. What's happening right now is that we are actively in this fight, and we will be until we are done.
Thank you, Dr. Carr and Chris, for those insights as well. I don't know if Heather, if you have insights, or if Georgia and Helena, you want to share something kind of about your own experience there as well. That would be wonderful. And then we have one more panel question before we will open it up for audience questions as well.
I'd love to hear from Helena and Georgia, because I always get this question from young people who want to go into sustainability for jobs or natural resources jobs, and it's really tough right now.
My own experience with it was just looking for internships this summer was very difficult. And it was hard to find places that weren't looking for very specific people, very specific sets of regulations, because of the lack of funding for positions like that, especially for, students who aren't as like informed on that, or don't have as much experience as other people. So it's a really tough time to find jobs in the environmental field right now. But for me, just, paying attention to volunteer opportunities, working with One Green Thing, looking into like community-based activities has been really inspiring. And, looking at it as an environmental work isn't going anywhere. It's not going away. It's not going anywhere. It's going to keep growing. And, there's still going to be policy leaders and the green engineering, climate scientists. So staying informed and getting engaged has been the best thing, I would say, to try to combat, all these risks and all these all the bad things that are happening with the new administration and all the news, all the bad news. It's hard to not fall into a hole of looking into it, but there's still, a lot of things to do for volunteer opportunities, community-based activities, and it's hard to get an internship and a job, but once you get one, I feel like the path is it just keeps going. It's going to keep going, and there's still jobs out there, and they're not going to go away. So just reminding myself of that as I come up on graduation with a environmental science degree.
Thank you. To add on that, I'm like still in high school and everything, and so I'm definitely like looking to the future, but it's very far off from right now, and so it's a little nerve-wracking not knowing what's going to happen in the very distant future. But I'm lucky to have a great community here, and I had an internship with Park County Environmental Council and stuff, and so I'm lucky to have this small group of people in Livingston that are going to probably be helpful in like my career options and stuff. But yeah, it's nerve-wracking not knowing what's going to happen in 5 years when I'm graduating college and stuff. So, and as of now, I have no idea what I want to do for school. I do know something climate related, but that's about it. So, yeah.
Thank you, Georgia and Helena. Heather, did you have anything you wanted to add to that, or?
I just think Jamie Alexander from Project Drawdown always says every job is a climate job. I think that we can call it what we want, but this is the biggest crisis of our lifetime collectively, and everyone is needed and everyone is welcome. And so, Leslie, you're a psychologist, you have a climate job now. Like Chris's climate job is easier to define because she's on the Hill, working to protect public lands. But I think we're going to find other medical professionals, teachers, you name it. Every job is a climate job. And I loved both Helena and Georgia, that there will be opportunities. And just one other thing I wanted to say is I wanted to say how important it is, even though we have LA and DC represented in Wellington, urban areas. I'm based in Bozeman. It's just understanding that climate anxiety impacts rural communities There was a great study from MSU 2 years ago about farmers experiencing climate anxiety. And I'm about to drop in a study with 4-H saying 85% of young 4-Hers list climate as their #1 issue. So I just want to make sure that when we're talking, I think in politics, it's easier to forget that this impact is national. It's actually global when it comes to young people, but I think it's really important for rural communities to have this space and this opportunity to talk. So thank you for making it happen, Park County and MSU and Families for a Livable.
Absolutely. I think that's such an excellent point. Thank you to everyone for your excellent responses with that. We have one more for the entire group. Part of the anxiety that people are experiencing, and we did touch on this a little bit, but it does stem from that uncertainty about the future. And so what is your advice to young people who are excited about a sustainability career, especially when, as we've covered, the news always seems to be very grim and the job market is very tight. What do you say to them? And maybe also, like, kind of what Helena was saying, what do you say to yourselves, and how do you find that motivation to keep looking, keep seeking out what you are so passionate about?
I'll jump in first. I'll just say that I think Helena nailed it. It is like when you land that first job, it's like the doors open, and the way that you get that first job is through networking. And networking was one of these mysterious terms that old people said to me when I was young, and I had no idea what it meant. It means getting people you know to introduce you to people who can introduce you to people who are doing things that you like, and then you talk to them and get to know them. That's all it is. You don't have to go to cocktail parties. If you're fundraising, you go to a lot of cocktail parties. If you're lobbying, you go to a lot of cocktail parties. But generally, that's what networking is. And so just be clear about what you want, be open, and put yourself out there. It's so hard to be like, hi, my name is Heather, and Helena suggested I contact you. I'm very interested in what you do. It takes a lot of courage, but that will really pay off. That's what I say.
I'll jump in on this too, because I have something that I kind of want to add, but just to start with what Heather was saying, I really want to second that. And both points. One is that every job is a climate job. And also this idea that, my father always used to say to me, everything in life is who you know. And the older I get, the more I discover that it's true. And there's a way in which we can approach networking, I think, in a very, very heart-forward way. I think there's this sort of old paradigm networking that is really transactional. But if you sort of are actually attuned to human relationships and the good work that you want to do in the world, you might be surprised at the doors that will open up for you. The other thing that I want to offer you might sound a little quirky and kind of outlandish, but I really think that it's true. I think one of the things that's really hard about all of the challenging news that's going on in the world these days is that we start to get a little bit confused about sort of self versus other, like what's happening to other people versus what's happening to us. We doom scroll, we see all this terrible stuff. Our own nervous system gets activated. We sort of feel like someone else's story is our story. And it's not. We are where we are with, playing the hand that we have been dealt. And it's funny how sometimes, don't get me wrong, like Helena, if you are having your own experience of having a hard time getting a job, that's your experience. And hopefully that will get better in the very near future. But what happens is sometimes when we're looking out at the aggregate, we assume we're going to have the experience that somebody else is having. And oftentimes we don't. And I'll give you a very funny example of this. In 2020, when COVID was raging and the supply chain was messed up and we were experiencing an economic contraction, there were the people that made Purell and toilet paper, and they were having a heyday. And so you just have to trust that you can go out into the world and be the toilet paper, be the Purell. And as silly as it might sound, our brains play a really big role. It's almost like the likelihood of being successful, it's more likely if you think that you will be successful and then you try from that place. So I just want to encourage you, young people, to be optimistic and to hope for the best and to trust that you can be the Purell or the toilet paper.
I love that perspective. Thank you so much, Dr. Carr. I would love to be the Purell. That is fantastic. Would anyone else like to jump in on this before I open it up to our audience for questions?
I just wanted to comment one thing on Dr. Carr's response is that I do relate to the that statement because a lot of the people, I have a lot of friends that have been graduating recently, and a lot of them don't know what they want to do or aren't sure if they chose the right major or if they care about, what they were studying. And in my mind, at first I was like, do I care about what I'm studying? Like, do I want to do this? And then I was realized that I do, and that it kind of is like, oh, like I care about this. Why does them not caring about it have to like mean me not caring? And that's kind of like where the like switch flipped this year. And I was like, wait, I really care about this. This is awesome. I want to get involved. And I met Heather and got involved in my classes and stuff, and it just started sort of blossoming from there, the networking. So that comment like resonated pretty well.
Awesome. And just the power of passion, right? We just can do so much when we feel passionately about what we're doing. So go you. I love it.
Yeah, that is awesome, Helena. And it, Dr. Carr, it's the power of passion that I think, if you are looking for jobs right now, that's what you need. And, I graduated law school in 2009, and it was incredibly hard to get a job in 2009. And if it wasn't for my passion of, no, I am going to be in the environmental movement, I'm going to save the planet, I don't know what I would be doing right now. And that took me all over. I was in Vermont, and my first job outside of law school was in this little tiny town called Lake City, Tennessee. And so, I never thought I was going to be going to Lake City, Tennessee. And it was some of the best years of the start of my career. And that was from networking, like Heather said. And, networking is a really funny term. It's more just talking to people who also have passion and building a relationship with them.
Agreed.
Amazing. Well, thank you. I love this messaging. This is super uplifting for me as well, and I hope for everyone else. Thank you to our fantastic panelists. I am going to open it up for questions from our audience. I know that we have one question waiting, so you are welcome to unmute or put it in the chat, whatever you're most comfortable with.
Sure, I'll just jump in. First of all, thank you, panelists. This has been super inspiring. I really appreciate you sharing your insights and wisdom and tips and hopes and fears. As a baby boomer who works a lot with young people, I'm a professor here at the University of Montana. Well, first of all, I'm thrilled to have my the Beautiful Pass that gets me into national parks now for free. So there are some upsides with getting to be a certain age. What strikes me about this panel is just the very fluid, natural, sort of generous, intergenerational exchange that's going on. And I just think that's really special. And I guess my question is, for the panelist is that, how do you see that as a way of addressing eco anxiety or eco stress? And, do you have any of your own examples of that are particularly, I don't know, that you'd like to share that are inspiring or personally meaningful or rewarding for you in your recent career or studies or whatever it is, things you do?
Thank you, Robin. This is one of the big things I talk about at One Green Thing. And in just a minute, I'll drop in actually an intergenerational discussion guide that we have at One Green Thing as a tool. And I hear from some of my friends who are not in this field, Heather, your kids have eco anxiety because they're your kids. I hear that pretty regularly. And I say, well, you know what? Why don't you ask the young people in your life how they feel about climate? Just ask them how they feel about climate change and how they feel about the future. And to a person, it's been a life-changing conversation. Just game changing. Like one of my friends, who Leslie and Helena and George, actually everyone on the panel knows, my friend Emily, who was an English major, right, and did pediatric cancer research and fundraising for that, said this to me. And I said, well, ask your sons. And her 15-year-old during dinner put his fork down and said, Mom, Dad, I think about climate change every day. We just never talk about it at home. And her younger son said, same. And for her, she ended up joining the One Green Thing team because it was such a powerful conversation. But I speak to all kinds of different generations. And one of the things that we're going to try to do, and it's how to do it authentically, I think is, Robin, what you really nailed, is like, how do you have these authentic conversations? And I think you start with the people that you love in your life. And, my kids have started talking to my parents about how they feel about climate. And it's really helped my parents think about things differently, just like my parents have shared with my kids the things that they've seen and the positive changes that they've seen culturally and globally as a way to just not give up hope right now. So I think there's incredible opportunities. There's some great organizations, Third Act, which you may know very well with Bill McKibben, that focuses on baby boomers to organize. But I will say that my kids asked me specifically, where are the baby boomers? Where's Gen X, which I'm a member of? Where are the millennials? We feel all alone in climate action. So I think these spaces are really, really important. And I'm going to drop the guide in just a minute. That's my thought. But Georgia, do you have thoughts on that? Because we've done panels together.
Yeah, I think connecting with like everyone, like all ages, like everyone is like really important. I just know from like the Green Initiative, like we've worked with like a lot of different like age groups and stuff. And it's just nice to see that like everyone is wanting to get involved and everyone cares. Um, like no matter who they are and stuff. And so I think it's just really important to show that you care and like you are like gonna help out like no matter who you are and stuff. So yeah.
The other thing we have is one of our themes at One Green Thing is be an awesome ancestor, which is kind of funny to talk to fifth graders about. But when you get my age, it's not so far off. But just this idea of what future are we creating for the people we love, and just being mindful that this daily practice is an act of love, an act of gratitude for them. And I think that that can bring I don't know if moral is the right word, but a really beautiful energy to this organizing. I think there was another question in the from the Red Lodge Green team. Do you see that?
Yes, I did see that. And their question is, how do you suggest getting young people more excited and involved with the environment? Which there can be many answers to that question.
I defer to Helena and Georgia right now.
Well, I would say getting young people involved in the environment, it sounds easier than it would be, but I think the biggest thing with it is, just coming at it from the point of view of like it being fun and engaging, and you're outside. Everyone cares about being outside in nature. Everyone cares about going to hikes. Everyone cares about like the cute animals outside. Everyone cares about things in nature that are so important that climate change is affecting. And I think coming at it from the aspect of like, this is a fun thing to do, and this is getting you outside. It's getting you involved in your community. It's getting you involved in nature and helping protect all those things that we love about nature is going to be the best tactic with it. And I think like coming at it from another side of like not just going at it to the people who are going to care about climate change, the people are going to care about it, but also the people you don't think will care about it actually probably will, like a lot of people like to go hunting, a lot of people like to go skiing, a lot of people like to do those things and activities, and you can get those people involved in it when you tell them about how it's affecting those activities that they love. So I think getting young people involved in climate change starting younger would be better, because, you know, they're going to go home and be like, Mom, tonight we learned about how the grizzly bears and this and that. And so there's a lot of ways to get people involved in climate change, but I think that just coming at it from a positive way of thinking instead of the crazy like data sets that NASA and NOAA produce and stuff, you know, coming at it from the fun stuff and the part about getting people outside and getting them involved would be the most engaging way.
I would definitely agree. I just know through like Green Initiative and stuff, we've like done tree planting days and stuff, and it's been the most fun I've had. And all the people I meet through Green Initiative, they're like the best people I know. And so just kind of like getting the word out, and like I found out through Green Initiative through a friend. And so like just getting your message out, like telling people that you're there and that you agree with them and that you have the same ideas as them is like really important, I think. And like I would have never known if my friend didn't tell me. So it's definitely like make sure people know, and that like they know it's like a fun thing and not just talking about the doom and gloom of climate change. It's like making an impact and doing actions that are fun and engaging and actually make an impact. So yeah, just kind of making it fun, and then also like using social media is like a big thing too. Like I know like our generation is very on like on our phones and stuff, and so getting an Instagram account or something set up so that you can like engage those young people around you. So yeah.
Yes, and I love that collective action message again, and community uplifting each other, and that's wonderful. And I think that really works for me as a young person too. So with that, thank you so much everyone for attending. If you are interested in staying connected with our panelists, we would love if you could drop your contact information in the chat or whatever you're comfortable sharing. You're welcome to follow our speakers on social media, sign up for email lists, and attend our next conversation in this series on May 14th. Additionally, after this webinar, stay tuned for a wrap-up email from Alicia with Park County Environmental Council with the links that we've shared, and please do stay in touch. Alicia's right there. Again, the next webinar will be on May 14th, and that session will focus on a legislative update, which will primarily be on updates from our Children's Trust, the Western Environmental Law Center, and host speakers, including Held versus the State of Montana plaintiff Eva Lighthizer, as well as Representative Lance Forestar, the Montana chapter of the Sierra Club, and the Montana Environmental Information Center. And this will be on bills passed or pending from the current Montana legislative session that may impact the Held versus the State of Montana Supreme Court ruling. So thank you again so much, everyone, for attending. It was wonderful to be here with you all, and enjoy your evening.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, Maya, for doing a phenomenal job under very stressful circumstances. We're really grateful. And thank you, everybody, for joining.
Seriously, thank you,
Thank
Maya.
you.
Thanks, everybody.
Oh, you're the best. Thank you.